And welcome back to another episode of the Double Doink Podcast. My name is Brenden and Eric. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're talking week 14. It's the home stretch. Playoffs are starting to kind of come through the windows here. We're seeing which teams are going to make it, which teams aren't. Teams are starting to get mathematically eliminated. We already have a division winner locked up. Mr. Warnsey is with me. Warnsey, how we doing?
Good, Brenden, good. Last week we went head-to-head for the first time this year, and who would have guessed that Mac Jones 2-point conversion would be the play that I was most locked into all season long so far?
I literally had no interest for that game once Trevor Lawrence got knocked out. I'm like, oh, Jaguars are dead. And then you put the group, you're like, watch this back door here. I look at the score app because it wasn't on the TV at work. I go, holy shit, they covered it. We got 4.5, I think, on the show. They ended up losing by 3. So
yeah, but it was because they went for 2 at the end there. They were down by 5, and then they went for 2 and got it. So a Mac Jones 2-point convert gets you the win.
Well, this week, Warnsey, not a lot going on. This is one of the worst weeks. We're 14 weeks in. I was going through it today going, oh, this slate stinks. Kind of looking forward more to college football championship Saturday than NFL Sunday a little bit this week. But let's break it down. We got 3 locks each. Let's start in Tampa Bay. The Las Vegas Raiders are on the road to take on the Bucs. The Bucs are 6.5-point favorites. The Bucs survived overtime last week after poor Canadian boy Chuba Hubbard fumbles in OT. Bucs go down and win that game. And then on the other side, the Raiders just couldn't finish a job. You know, the Jackson Powers Johnson missed snap at the end of that Chiefs game. They almost pulled off the big upset. Warnsey, what you looking at in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, so I'm happy you brought up both these teams' results last week because the spread's sitting at 6.5 currently. I wonder what the spread would have been if Chuba didn't fumble and if the Raiders kick a game-winning field goal. We might be around a 3-point spread here, which would be green light special for Tampa Bay, in my opinion. Didn't get those results, so we're sitting at 6.5. The spread feels right. I lean the Bucs because I just like them better. I like Baker. I don't believe in this Raiders offense, even though they did have a good showing last week. That was a division game. Kind of feels like it was the Raiders Super Bowl. Can they get back up in this spot? I don't think so. So for the sake of the show, I'm going to take the Bucs, but it's far from a lock in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. You got 2 quarterbacks kind of coming off different games too. Baker Mayfield had his worst passer rating of the season last week, and then Aiden O'Connell looked very good against the Chiefs defense. So Baker's looking for a bounce back. Warnsey, where do you think the Bucs defense ranks in success rate right now? If you were to take a guess,
I saw this sort of. I want to say they're like 27th.
29th. 29th. I like this team a lot. I think they are the best team in the NFC South, but kind of something to watch going forward. Their defense isn't kind of living up to expectations.
Yeah,
and part
they're
of that
still
defense
blitzing at a crazy high rate. And I mean, last week, Bryce Young, for the first time in his career, had a great game against the blitz. I don't have Aiden O'Connell's stats versus the blitz in front of me, but I'm going to guess he's not going to perform the way Bryce Young did last week.
So part of the Bucs defense that really they struggle against is tight ends. They are 31st in DVOA against tight ends, and they are dead last in EPA per play on throws between the numbers. Brock Bowers is coming to town. He is I think the best tight end in the NFL this season.
I don't even think that's a hot take.
Yeah, and his total sitting at 68.5 right now. He's blown that over in 2 of the last 3 games. I didn't like a lot this week, so this is giving me my first lock. I'm going to take Brock Bowers over 68.5 receiving yards against the Bucs. Another couple reasons why is Jacoby Myers is also might not play in this game. They are going to need Brock Bowers in this one. Myers popped up with an ankle injury today on the injury report, so watch out for that. But Bowers is going to be getting a ton of targets. He had 14 last week, and I think they're going to want to push for him almost to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Right now, he's plus 1,000. I think he should be undoubtedly the Offensive Rookie of the Year right now because this isn't like the MVP where it has the most valuable in it. This is who's the best rookie, and I think Brock Bowers has been the best offensive rookie so far. So my first lock of the week is going to be Bowers over 68.5 receiving yards, but I'm going to take the Bucs minus 6.5 in the spread just because you get 68.5 yards. I don't think you win. I think the Bucs can win this by touchdown.
No, I actually like that prop a lot because the Raiders have no run game. With Vita Vea in there, the Bucs can stop the run, so that there should be a lot of obvious passing situations for the Raiders where Bowers will unquestionably be the number 1 target.
All right, next up, we got an AFC North matchup. The Cleveland Browns are on the road to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another 6.5-point spread. favorite for the home team. Huge game for the AFC North race in general. The Steelers need this one. Like if they drop this one to Cleveland, that opens the door for Baltimore on their bye week. That makes that game later in the season a lot more important when these two teams face each other. Steelers, I think, have a 1.5 game lead right now on that division. Russell Wilson shredded that Bengals defense last week. It was arguably one of his best games of his career. However, the Bengals defense has been getting shredded basically by any quarterback they face this week. Since Russell Wilson took the job, the Steelers offense is second in total yards and 6th in points per game. This offense has been very good under Mr. Russell Wilson. Warren Z, what you got in this Pittsburgh matchup?
So AFC North matchup, fundamentals tell me take the under. But that has not been the case for the AFC North this year. You mentioned the Bengals defense, and we know about their offense. They're a straight over team. With Jameis Winston at the helm, the Browns are the definition of an over team, throwing the ball all over the yard. But I'm going to stick with some basic AFC North fundamentals, and that is when Mike Tomlin is an underdog, bet him. When he's a favorite, fade him. So I think 6.5 is too much here. I do think the Steelers win the game, but for the sake of the show, I'm going to grab the points and take Browns plus 6.5.
Also going to take Browns 6.5. The Jameis Winston experience. Just give us another week of that. That was hilarious on Monday night, man. God deliver him away from pick sixes. That's his quote after. I'm looking forward to seeing Jameis against the Steelers defense that kind of likes to get up in your face and play some man coverage, similar to kind of what Denver does. So he'll have his chances to throw the ball around. I think he keeps it within 6.5. Now, crazy stat: the Steelers have won 20 straight home games against Cleveland. It's been a very long time since the Browns have won in Pittsburgh. So maybe they can break that streak. But I'm also going to take the Browns.
This Browns defense, though, like for all the talent it has, they're very, very susceptible to the big play. Yep. Russell Wilson has been hitting the big play so far. So I do think I lean over more than anything. But your boy Schwartzy, I think his seat's a little hot. I think this defense is underperformed considering how much talent it has.
I also think last year's defense just performed so good where expectations were a little unhinged. Like they were
but if they
bound
cut
to
out
take
the
a step
big
back.
plays, they're a great defense. But just every game they give up 1 or 2 70-yard touchdowns.
That Bo Nix throw was an absolute dot last week. That was just, against that defense. Okay, we're both on Browns plus 6.5. Let's go to an absolute stinker. Jaguars on the road to take on the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are 3.5-point favorites. Woof, this game sucks. T-Law done for the year. We already talked about it at the top. Travis Hunter, I would start looking at houses in Jacksonville. I thought Brian Thomas Jr. could have like 250 yards if Trevor Lawrence was quarterback. He got overthrown, I think, on like 2 deep bombs. He's like the only exciting thing that Jaguars fans have left to watch. Nick Westbrook-Akina, 8 touchdowns in his last 8 games. That's pretty much the only exciting things I have on this one. Warren, you got anything?
Yeah, last week I was on the over in the Titans game. It was a rocking chair. The Commanders almost covered the over in the first half all on their own. So I went to look at the over again in this situation, but unfortunately weather has me passing on that. It looks like we're going to have rain and wind throughout. So that makes me just stay away from this game. And if there's weather, I'm going to grab the points and take the plus 3.5. I hate backing Mac Jones, but Will Levis favored by more than a field goal? Either way, you're making a pick in this game that you don't feel great about. So I guess I'll just grab the points.
Yeah, Levis right now has a pressure rate of 43.6%. That's the highest of any quarterback. That's mind-boggling numbers. And the Jaguars defense got after Stroud last week, so I think they can kind of cause some chaos for him as well. Levis takes a ton of sacks, so I'm also going to grab Jacksonville plus 3.5, but I'm just going to stay far away from this game and not actually put hard-earned currency on it. All right, next up, the Carolina Panthers are on the road to take on my Birds. The Birds are 12.5-point favorites at the Link. So last week, Baltimore went into last week allowing 77 rushing yards per game. That was first in the NFL. The Eagles ran for 144 on Baltimore, so doubling that total, almost doubling that total. Carolina right now enters Week 14 with the worst rush defense in the league. They allow 166.8 rushing yards per game, by a mile the worst rushing defense in the NFL. Now, that could be a lot to do with, like, they're down a lot. Teams are just running the ball on them, but this team can't stop the run, and Saquon Barkley's coming to town chasing Eric Dickerson's record. Orenzy, can my Birds cover this massive spread?
I think they do. It is my first lock of the week. I'm going to take the Birds minus 12.5. Now, I know double-digit spread, normally not our bread and butter. Favorites in double-digit spreads so far this year are 4-2. They did start the year 4-0, but the dogs have covered the last two. But you just said it. The matchup I just can't ignore is Saquon versus run defense. This kind of reminds me of the game a few weeks ago, Detroit versus Jacksonville, where you had a glaring weakness. It was the worst pass defense of Jacksonville versus Jerry Goff, who just doesn't throw incompletions. And that game was over in the first quarter. I think it's going to be something similar. Now, I know the Eagles haven't started well, but just hand the ball off. Maybe they actually have a good first quarter if Saquon runs the ball the way we expect him to. And you mentioned the record he's chasing, so why not keep feeding him? I know that down the stretch they do face some tougher run defenses, so this is kind of the game if you're looking at the schedule and looking at that record where Saquon needs a 150 to 200 here to keep that record within reach. So I think they're going to feed Saquon heavy. I don't care if it's a square play. I'm going to be on Eagles minus 12.5, Saquon 100 yards rushing, and a touchdown.
Yeah, the Eagles actually face 4 of the 6 worst run defenses in the NFL in their last 5 games. Now, the Steelers are top 5. They're 4th. But they got the Commanders, where we were 27th, the Cowboys 31st, and the Giants 29th. Like, I think the Saquon record is legit. Like, this Dickerson's record could be broken.
We'll get to the Giants, but they're going to be missing their best run stuffer
best player,
the rest of the year.
Best player in general.
Exactly.
Best player in general. If you want to, like, Bryce Young's been playing really well. I got to tip my hat to him. Like, I don't know when you're going to be able to give him a compliment because I know you hate that guy with your guts, but he played really well again last week against the Bucs. But this Eagles defense is a different animal. Since week 6, they're first in points per game allowed, first in total yards allowed, first in passing yards allowed, first in 3-and-out percentage, first in sacks, and first in forced fumbles. They are rolling right now, and they are so fun to watch. This defense brings me back to when I became an Eagles fan in the early 2000s of that Jim Johnson style aggressive defenses. I'm more excited to watch the Eagles defense every week than the Eagles offense. I think they can kind of put Bryce Young in a little bit of a blender here. So I'm also going to take the Eagles minus 12.5. Too many points for me to take a lock. I would rather light myself on fire than make a lock of over 12.5 points. But Warren Z's first lock is in.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on. Atlanta Falcons are on the road to take on the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Chains is returning to Minnesota, where he spent a good part of his career. He was awful last week against the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's call a spade here. If you look at his last 3 games, he has 0 touchdowns, 6 picks, and 4 fumbles. Warren Z, take a guess how many rushing yards Kirk Chains has this year.
6.
0. He does not have a rushing yard log. Now, he does have rushing yards, but there's a lot of negatives in there, too. It all adds up to 0. He can't move right now. Like, that's my biggest takeaway when I watch him. He can't push and drive the ball. That 1 pick 6 was an absolute duck. Like, I saw, like, it was like a paper airplane thrown to the guy.
Are you talking about the interception in the end zone?
No, I'm talking the one that was on the sidelines where they housed it back.
Yeah.
The end zone one was just a dumb decision.
The one in the end zone, the camera is obviously focused on the line of scrimmage, and then he throws this like lob ball up, and I'm like, oh, somebody's wide open back there for sure. And then you look, it was like there's 4 Chargers there. I was like, what was that? I think Kirk is hurt. I know you're talking about the plant foot and him not getting pressure there. I think it's his shoulder because he's not a pitcher throwing 100 by any means, but Kirk's always had like a decent fastball. And
and earlier in the year it was there a little bit. Like it wasn't
but the arm strength, maybe it is the plant leg, but I think it's his shoulder. But the ball is not coming out good. And if you look at this matchup versus the Vikings, who should know Kirk better than anybody? It would be his old coaching staff. I think Brian Flores is going to have some exotic blitzes drawn up like always. And Kirk versus pressure this year has just been awful. So if Flores manufactures pressure via the blitz, I really like the Vikings here. I almost made this a lock. I think if we had 4 locks, this probably would have been my 4th. But I do think the point spread is a little bit inflated. I do think the public is aware of Kirk's struggles, and that's why we're getting a little bit higher of a number here. So I'm going to pass on this one, but for the sake of the show, I'm siding with the Vikings minus 5.5.
Yeah, you were bringing up like the Raiders Bucs spread. Like, what if Like, what if the Falcons pulled out that win last week? Because the Chargers didn't play well either. Like, that game was still within reach. Like, what's the spread at? It's 5.5. Like, this was probably 2.5 a week ago. Something that, like, Vikings or Falcons fans can kind of hang their hat on is the defense played really well. The Chargers had 187 yards of offense last week and lost or won. You don't see teams with under 200 yards of offense and win very many football games. The Falcons also had 5 sacks. This was, like, the most sacks they've ever. They had what, like 12 sacks all season leading into that game? Yeah. So that's something like I keeping my eye on here. Like that, this was one of the hardest games for me to navigate, but I'm gonna go with the Vikings minus 5.5 because they can't. The Vikings are 3rd in quarterback pressures, 4th in sacks. I can't trust what I'm seeing from Kirk Cousins right now. So strictly off of that, I'll go with the Vikings. But I don't. I
think there are people that are backing the Falcons, and their reasoning would be, Younghoe Koo missed some kicks last week. And yes, that's true, but one of the kicks he missed, it was, I want to say, like a 40-yarder. The only reason he was kicking it was because Kirk Cousins missed a wide-open Darnell Mooney for a walk-in touchdown. So, yeah, maybe Younghoe Koo hits that kick this week, but they're still not scoring the touchdowns because Kirk's arm isn't getting the ball to where it needs to be. So, I'm on the Vikings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on. Jets are heading to Miami to take on the Dolphins. The Dolphins are 5.5 point favorites. It's Aaron Rodgers documentary trailer week. I don't know if you saw that. Jets fans are probably like, no one wants to see this right now. Like, it would have been a lot cooler if the Jets were 9-3 watching this Rodgers documentary than 3-9. The Dolphins are hanging on for their playoff lives here. They have the 4th easiest remaining schedule according to opponent win percentage left. Since week 8, Tua Tagovailoa ranks 1st in EPA per play out of 31 qualifying quarterbacks. So with him on the field, this Dolphins offense has been good, but we saw that defense last week get carved up against by the Green Bay Packers. Offense, Warrensy, what do you make of this AFC East matchup?
Yeah, so it's another week where people are betting on the Jets. I really don't get it. The spread opened at 6.5. It's down to 5.5, and that's all I needed to make the Dolphins my second lock of the week. Why are people betting on the Jets? Like, why? I seriously don't understand it. This team is in give-up mode. I believe Sauce Gardner is expected to miss. He's dealing with a hamstring, and Jets coach Albrecht was quoted saying, Dolphins, a lot of speed, don't want to be out there if you have a bad hamstring. So I think he's going to miss. It looks like Breece Hall is also banged up and likely to miss this game. So I think the way that you beat this Dolphins defense is the way that the Patriots did it last week with hand the ball off inside. I think missing Hall, they're going to struggle offensively. And you said it, Tua's hot. And if this Jets defense is in give-up mode without Sauce Gardner, I'm going to take the Dolphins minus 5.5. And I'm going to wait it out. You might see 4.5 if these idiots keep betting on the Jets.
Last week's Jets-Seahawks game was so chaotic where, like, Rodgers lost them that game, in my opinion. Like, this was the kind of one I was watching. He looked terrible.
Like, if you were power ranking your quarterbacks right now, and I know there's a lot of people who do not like Tua out there, you'd have to have Tua in your top 15, even the most Tua haters. Aaron Rodgers is not in the top 20. Like,
no, I brought up the Tua first in EPA stats since week 8. Rodgers is 26 out of 31 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
He's been a bottom 5 quarterback during this stretch, and like he's not on the injury report anymore. You can't blame injuries. I don't know. I can't back this Jets team. I'm with you. I'll take the Dolphins minus 5.5, but it's not gonna be one of my locks. All right, next up, the New Orleans Saints are 3.5 point road favorites heading into New York to take on the Giants. Dexter Lawrence out for the year. That's the Giants' best player. The Giants got run over by Rico Dowdle last week. Drew Lock is starting again. Warren Z, this game stinks. What you got?
Oh, this game reeks. These are two teams I'll definitely be looking to fade as the season goes on. I really don't believe in this Saints team whatsoever. But last week, they were able to run the ball against the Rams. I was a little bit impressed, but that was with Taysom Hill. So will they have the same success without him? It's hard to know. But you're also, like you said, removing Dexter Lawrence from this Giants defense. So I think Lawrence is the much bigger loss than Taysom Hill. I'm going to take the Saints minus 3.5 here. I might not even watch a single snap of this game. But
no one's watching this game unless you're a Saints or Giants.
Yeah. But I was close to making the Saints a lock, just because I like fading the Giants right now and what they are. But I can't believe I'm saying this. I wish I had Taysom Hill.
Mm-hmm.
If I had Taysom Hill, this would be a lock for me, but I don't. So
yeah, I literally have in my notes, Taysom Hill done for the year. There goes their offense. It's all over now.
Crazy, but it's true.
I have a lock in this one. It's going to be a prop. Both these run defenses absolutely stink. We talked about the Giants getting run over by Dottle last week. The Saints run defense is atrocious. They're like on pace to like one of the worst run defenses this team has ever had. So Tyron Tracy's number is at 59.5 right now. That's very low. The Saints rush defense ranks 31st in rush success rate allowed, 30th in EPA per rush. We just saw Kyron Williams run for 104 yards, 7 yards a pop against the Saints. I think Tyron Tracy can easily pass 60 yards. That total's way too low. I'd grab it now before it goes up. I also like Kamara over. Both these running backs grab their over totals because these teams can't stop the run, both of them. So I was going back and forth between Kamara and Tracy. Just Kamara's total was a little higher. I was believing like the high 80s. So Tyron Tracy can get in the high 50s. So I like that a lot better. And I think Tyron Tracy's looking good. He's probably the only, like him and Neighbors are the only two guys you're watching for if you're a Giants fan at the moment. I know Tracy's had some fumble problems, but he's got juice, and I think he can clear 59.5
I was close
easily.
to taking the under in this game because you just mentioned both these teams are going to be heavy run attacks. It's going to be quick moving clock. There might be a little bit of weather, so I was looking at the under. But like you just said, their run defenses are so bad. If they're running for 7 yards a pop, that low total of 41 all of a sudden seems very in reach.
All right, that's it for the 1 o'clock games. We're going to take a quick break. We each have one lock left. We'll be back with those on the other side.
The Double Doink Podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life is hard. It's especially hard when you don't have someone you can open up to. Not everyone is comfortable talking to their friends and family about their personal matters or anything that is bothering them on a day-to-day basis. Mental health is so important to continued success in this world. Therapy is a great way to regroup and get everything off your chest. Insert BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy service, 100% online. They will match you with professional licensed therapists you can trust. You can talk with your therapist however you see fit, via text, phone call, or video chat. BetterHelp has successfully helped over 4 million people worldwide deal with their day-to-day mental health issues. Use the link in the podcast description to get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.
And we're back, breaking down the 4 o'clock games and the night games. Probably game of the week. Let's talk about it. The Seattle Seahawks are on the road to take on the Arizona Cardinals. This game has massive implications for the playoffs for both teams. So if the Seahawks win, they have a 62% chance of making the playoffs. If they lose, they have a 17% chance to make the playoffs. If the Cardinals win, they have a 71% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose, that's 11%. So that's according to Aaron Schatz at DVOA and FTN. So basically, it's like when you're in the playoffs. Sorry, like this is crucial for both these squads. Warrenzy is our Seattle Seahawks boy. He has futures on him. He loves that squad. He's a big Geno dude. I'll pass the ball to you.
I am a big Geno dude, but this offense is kind of trending in the wrong direction as their defense is trending in the right direction. And I actually want to give a little shout out to Jonathan Gannon here. If you look at this Cardinals defense on paper, there's not a lot of talent. And I think he's, without a question, getting the most out of this unit. They're a middle-of-the-pack defense. But like I said, if you took talent into consideration, you would expect a bottom 5 unit. So I was looking at the under in this game. If you do go back to when these two teams played just 2 weeks ago, it was a 13-7 ball game. That was outdoors with a little bit of weather to factor in. They're now moving indoors. But Kyler Murray, if you look at his splits, he's a lot better versus zone than man. He saw strictly man in that previous matchup versus Mike McDonald defense, and they only put up 7 points. So I was close to going on the under, but these two teams playing each other so recently makes me think the coaching staffs will make adjustments. So I did shy away from it. And like you mentioned, I have Seahawks futures already. So I'm going to sit on the sidelines with my Seahawks tickets and root them on. Lean the plus 2.5. If it was a 3, I'd be all over it. But I kind of, this screams win by a field goal either way.
Mm-hmm. The Gannon thing, like I get the defense is playing better than the talent is 100%. But I think that he made a terrible decision last week. He did what the Eagles did in week 2. Like they're up by 3. You're in the red zone. Instead of going for it, you kick a field goal, go up by 6, and that pushes the Vikings to score a touchdown. They drive right down the field and do that, and they lose. Like you saw your old team do that in week 2. You saw it.
Give up about 25 yards of field position when
exactly.
You do that.
So I thought that was a terrible decision by Gannon. I think that could potentially lose them the playoffs, right? If they're one game out, that comes back to bite them. They really need to figure out the offensive line issues. Kyler's getting pressured at a crazy rate. So the last time these two teams played, the Seahawks had 19 unblocked pressures. Remember we talked about Boy Mafia having 7 of those in one game? Last week against the Cardinals, the Vikings had 21 unblocked pressures on Arizona. So they're having a lot of just issues figuring out protection schemes here. This Cardinals offensive line is kind of taking a step back in pass protection. They were a good unit to start the season. We're seeing that dip a little. And the Seahawks get a little bit of reinforcements as well. My boy Uchenna Nwosu was activated off IR today. It looks like he's going to play in this one. Leonard Williams is playing lights out right now. Like he's one of the best defensive linemen in football. 2 sacks and a pick 6 last week. And let's talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. a little bit. Where are you, bud? You're on a milk carton. You were drafted 4th overall. It's time to step up. Only 15 catches over the last 2 weeks. He's dead last on that team in yards of separation per route run at 1.9 yards. They need him to step up now. Like it's do or die for this offense. They need a guy outside of Trey McBride to make plays. So I'm going to be looking for that. All this talk, I'm going with this underdog, the Seahawks. I'll take them plus 2.5. I'll take the points, but I think this game's going to be really close, like you said, kind of a field goal matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game worth watching.
All right, next up, your squad, Warrensy, heading over to San Francisco. They're 3.5-point road underdogs in California. Thomas Brown coaching debut. What a ride for him this season. Passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator. Now you're running the show, baby. The Matt Eberflus is gone. The Bears fallout continues. I'm sure you saw the Jalen Johnson stuff where he lost his mind.
There was a party when Eberflus got fired, a full-on party. And if you look this season, there's been 2 in-season firings previously. The Jets fired Salah, and the Saints fired Dennis Allen. Now, against the spread, both these teams in their next game were 1-1. And I think if you look at it, the Salah firing kind of came as a little bit of a surprise. I don't think the players in the locker room were really on board with it. They didn't cover their next week. The Saints, on the other hand, I think that they were happy that Dennis Allen left the building. They had an inspired performance the next week. Definitely put Eberflus being fired in the latter category. I think the Bears are going to have a really spirited performance here. I was close to taking them and making them a lock, but the injury report scared me away because it looks like the Bears are going to be without their top 2 running backs, DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. So it's going to be a lot on Caleb's plate. But if you just look at these 2 teams in a vacuum, the Bears and the 49ers, they're very similar. The Bears defense is ranked 9th in EPA per play right now. The 49ers offense is 11th. The Bears offense is 22nd in EPA per play. 49ers defense is 20th. So they're very, very similar in terms of just overall net rankings. So I'm going to take the points. I also do think the spread opened at 6 or 5 and has since been bet down. So a lot of Bears money has come in and I've kind of missed the better number. But I just don't think these teams are far apart right now. And speaking of running backs being injured, 49ers are also down there top 2 running backs. So I'm going to take the Bears here. It was close to being a lock, but I do expect a really spirited performance considering that Eberflus is finally gone.
Mm-hmm. The Bears have played 4 games this season with a point differential of 3 or less with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They are 0-4 in those games. Like this season,
hard to do, man.
You know what I mean? Like if you win 2 of those, you're in a different spot. You win 3 of those, you win 4 of those, right? Like these close games that just haven't been able to take. With Eberflus gone, maybe Thomas Brown's better at these decisions. If you look at Caleb Williams' last 6 games, he has not thrown a pick. 0 interceptions last 6 games. There's a big reason why I loved him coming out of college. Loved the talent, loved him as a player, but he only had a 1.3% interception percentage in college. You're seeing that kind of come to fruition now. He's very good with the ball. He's playing really well. That was a lights out performance in the second half. The 49ers, Trent Williams and Nick Bosa both didn't practice so far. Trent Williams had a tragedy. I think both of his twin sons or twins passed away this week. I don't think he's going to be playing. And then Nick Bosa, we don't know what's going on with his injury. Brock Purdy's banged up. I think the 49ers are toast. I think the Bears roll here. They're going to be my lock here.
I think they know that their season ended last week.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
agree.
going to be hard for them to get up against a Bears squad on a 6-game losing streak.
I think the 49ers running backs injured is a lot more important for them than the Bears running backs injuries. I don't think it's like a cancel out situation. I think the Bears have the upper hand here. I'm going to lock them in. This is going to be my third lock. Bears plus 3.5. When's you riding with your boys?
All right. I'm on the Eagles. You're on the Bears.
Let's go, baby. All right. The Buffalo Bills, 3.5-point road favorites heading into Los Angeles. The Bills, like we talked about at the top, secured the AFC East. Something I was thinking about this team is they just don't have like any weakness. Like, what do you do if you're a team kind of game planning for the Bills? What are you targeting here? Like, they're good against the run. They're a good run team. They have Josh Allen. They're a good pass defense team. Like, there's not a lot you can do. Like, they're really good. And that was a really impressive performance against the 49ers in the snow. The Bills' offense has now jumped to second in EPA per play of all teams. They jumped Baltimore last week. They're only behind the Detroit Lions. Warnsey,
yeah,
give the Bills
no,
some
I
credit
think
here?
if you were to look at X's and O's and on paper, Bills are definitely the right side. But I think this game, you just really got to look at the motivation factor. The Bills locked up the division. It's really hard to follow that up next week with a really intense effort. They do have a lot to play for still with seeding. We know how important the first overall seed is. But still, you just locked up the division. You're playing an out-of-conference opponent who should be desperate. And I know you did mention that there aren't a lot of holes with this Bills defense, which is right. We did see Derrick Henry go off on them last a couple months ago. Before he got hurt, Christian McCaffrey was 7.5 yards a pop.
Yep.
I do think Kyron Williams has a route to have success on the ground in this game. And I think if the Rams are able to move the ball on the ground and control some of the clock, keep Josh Allen on the bench, they're going to cover. So I'm going to take the Rams to cover, just banking on that being a little bit of a letdown spot for the Bills.
Mm-hmm. I'm also on that kind of letdown spot narrative here. I'm going to take the Rams plus 3.5. I think there's potential the Rams win this one outright. This is a cross-country trip after the snow game. The Rams are desperate right now. They got to put a W on the board. I think this is one where you kind of like, when after the game you go, man, Sean McVay's really good at his damn job. Like, he schemed up like a really good game. We saw Puka Nacua is just playing such good football right now. I think you could see him have a nice day. I think the Bills are obviously the better team, but this game screams like letdown spot for the Bills and upset potential. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Bills continue to roll, but I'm going to lock the points here with the home underdog. All right, next up, good Sunday night game. Los Angeles Chargers on the road to take on the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. Now, I'm not the type of guy that goes, oh, like one injury is going to dictate this game, but every Chargers fan and a lot of bettors are watching that Chargers injury report because Ladd McConkey is banged up heading in this one. The Chiefs just have black magic where there's an injury, like Derwin James was suspended the last time these two teams played. Warren, did you look at the box score for the Chargers receiving numbers last week against the Falcons?
Yeah, well, I just looked at it for the whole season, and when targeting Ladd McConkey, their EPA per dropback is top 5 in the league. Targeting other wide receivers not named Ladd McConkey, it's a bottom 5 dropback EPA per play. You're not joking when Ladd McConkey is everything to this game.
Yeah.
But my last lock of the week, I'm actually going to take a huge swing here. I'm going Will Dissly touchdown. It's plus 350 right now.
Whoa, let's go.
Brock Bowers had an enormous game last week against this Chiefs defense. They've struggled against tight ends all year. They're actually third worst against tight ends in the league. I haven't seen Will Dissly's yards number posted. That's why I'm going to take the big swing and go for the touchdown. More conservative play would be to get his yards number. He's normally around a 35 to 40 yard type guy. But yeah, I just think Will Dissly has a big game if Ladd McConkey, even if Ladd McConkey suits up and is banged up, he could be just used as a decoy. So give me Will Dissly finding the end zone.
I have never been caught off guard more with a bet in my life for this game, for the show. 350 is a swing, dude. You know you could get minus odds, like, but you're right. The yards haven't been posted. I even checked up DraftKings. They're usually early with the stuff. They don't have a Will Dissly number yet. It's Sunday night game, and with the Ladd McConkey injury, I guess that dictates a lot with the receiving totals. Like if he's in or he's out, so this is going to fluctuate depending on his status. Like last week, Ladd McConkey had 117 receiving yards. The Chargers had 187 total yards in the game. Like there was a point where Ladd McConkey had 100 yards. The next guy had 2 yards. Like he is the passing offense. Will Dissly's been really solid for them though this year. They like to use him in the red zone. He's kind of emerged as like a pass catching weapon. Hasn't usually been his style. So I do like that. I without McConkey, it's hard for me to get a read on this game. Like there's a couple angles you can look at. The Chiefs' offensive tackle situation has been a disaster so far this season. Now DJ Humphries might get the start this week. They signed him off kind of the scrap heap. He was like former first-round pick, I believe, from Arizona. He's been recovering from an injury. Like if you take a look at Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamatea, they've had 8 sacks, 46 pressures combined. Like Khalil Mack kind of wrecked this football game. But the Chiefs, in my opinion, like they're really good at running the ball down teams' throats. It's kind of been the way they like to dictate games this year, of being a heavy team. A lot of Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco running downhill, and the Chargers are just a smaller defense. So I think the Chiefs are going to try to keep this game tight. With that, I'll take the Chargers plus 3.5. But without the Ladd stuff, like again, I'm not the guy that says one injury is a big deal, but this game it is.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Last game, Bengals minus 5.5, road favorites heading into Dallas. We could spend 30 seconds on this, Wardsy. The Cowboys are coming off a win against the Giants. The Bengals season looks to be over. That defense is just atrocious, getting lit up by Russell Wilson. They can't do anything. Your boy, Lou Anarumo, might be looking for a job after the season. There are going to be some wholesale changes in Cincinnati after this really, really disappointing season. Also, Jamar Chase popped up on the injury report as well. I believe with an ankle injury, so something to keep an eye on that. But Warren, you got anything to finish this off?
I believe CeeDee Lamb also popped up on the injury report as well.
He's expected to play. They came out today that he's expected to play. But he's been so banged up all year. Like there was one point he had like 3 injury designations on his report.
Yeah, so I want to see that final injury report because I do think that this game has good over potential. I mentioned it earlier. The Bengals are a straight over team, and I think we'll probably go back to that well. And then if you're building your same game parlay, just add in whoever you want because I think it's green light special all over the board for both these offenses. Even if it is Cooper Rush, I think he has a good day against this Bengals defense. For the spread, I am going to take the Bengals just because I like their offense better than the Cowboys offense. So give me the Bengals minus 5.5, but I like the over more than anything.
I'm also on the Bengals minus 5.5. I do like that over slot. When we did our week predictions and our spread pool, I put our total pretty high for the Monday Night Football tiebreaker. All right, Warren Z, that's it. We got our 6 locks on the board. Why don't you recap yours?
I am going to be on the Birds. It's a high spread, but I think this game's over in the first quarter. Give me the Eagles minus 12.5. I'm on the Fish. Give me the Dolphins minus 5.5. And then I'm taking a swing on the late game. Will Dissly finding the end zone plus 350.
I will be riding Will Dissly with you on Sunday Night Football 100%.
Lock it in now because if Ladd gets ruled out, that probably drops to 2 something.
Good point. All right, I'm on the Brock Bowers over 68.5 receiving yards. Tyrone Tracy over 59.5 rushing yards. And the Chicago Bears plus 3.5. That's all she wrote. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. That'd be greatly appreciated. Wherever you get your audio podcast, please give us a review. Anything you can do to help out the show, and we will talk to you later.